And we're back, ladies and gentlemen, live on the Philippe Matthews Show After Hours. Welcome back. Took me a moment to get her, but we finally got her. It's a phenomenal, phenomenal topic. It's called the Angry Black Woman Syndrome. I'm here with Emunah Yisrael. She is a self-described do-it-yourself improvement expert. She's amazing. She's the creator of Solonomics 101, the Zakar Song Project, the T3 community support forums, and the In the Wilderness Project, which is a site for spiritual education and restoration of a downtrodden people. She's also a reggae artist. A lot of people, I know you didn't know that. Now people are going to know that. We put her on the spot a little bit. She's the co-host of CPR Live Radio and a natural beauty business owner. So sisters, if you need some natural beauty products, keep that beautiful melanated skin hydrated and illuminated and radiated, check out Emunah. And also she is the author of The Angry Black Woman Syndrome Revisited. How are you, my dear?
I am doing well. Thank you so much. How are you today, Mr. Philippe? I
am fantastic. I am working on my angry black male syndrome. And, and I've had my encounters and fair shares of the angry black woman. Yeah. And always wanted to attribute it to that's just the way we are. That's just the way our sisters are. And as I started working and studying and researching and bringing people on the show who are adept in epigenetics, I started seeing something that made sense. And then I found you as a result of that search and going deeper into the research as to why there is such a thing as an angry black woman and that perception. One of your YouTube videos talked about how this goes back to the 1800s.
Yes.
Talk to me about the media and the propaganda that occurred in the 1800s with the abolitionists.
Yeah. Welcome. I'm saying welcome. Greetings. And thank you.
I know you used to doing your own show, so you used to running it. You know, you used to be on the other side.
I'm telling everybody welcome, right? I'm taking your role, Philippe. My bad. It's supposed to happen.
Interview me, ladies and gentlemen. I'm like, well, I didn't write the book. This is her book. I didn't write it. Go ahead.
Okay, basically, this book, The Angry Black Woman Syndrome Revisited, is looking at the stereotype of the angry black woman. And so when we talk about the stereotype, we have to talk about media. A very interesting thing in this study is what I found out, that the word stereotype means firm impression. It's from a Greek word. The second thing I found out is that it is a printing term. So it's cliche. And so instead of the movable text, they would have a plate. And that is what made printing more affordable. The thing about the stereotype is that once it's set, it doesn't change. You have to keep that in your mind. Once it's set, it doesn't change. So, right? So at the point in which it was set in history, all it does is continue to be embellished upon, but the narrative doesn't change. So Philippe asked about where did I find it started, and where I found it. If you do a normal search, you'll see Amos and Andy pop up. But I'm not satisfied with that. You understand? So I started digging a little more. I'm like, no, this tree has deeper roots. So when I actually went deeper, I found that around the 1830s, which at that time it was books and theater. Those were the two major forms of entertainment, books and theater. Now,
sure,
that was the media, right? And so that was the media of the day. What happened in that time, in and around that time, is that there was a lot of things going on here in America. And they sprung up what they call the minstrel shows. And from my research thus far, because I'm still researching, they said this was the first authentically American form. Go ahead. The first American form of entertainment. It wasn't Shakespearean plays. It wasn't. They were doing those things before, but now the minstrel shows were authentically American. Keep that in mind. Very interesting. Okay, I'm sorry about that. Go ahead.
She's got babies, baby. She's got babies.
I'm not talking to myself here.
She's got twins. She got all age ranges from 2 to 8. Yes. So that's a mama right there.
That's Mommy Emunah. So basically what I found was that around the 1830s, the minstrel shows started to pop up. What was going on in the country was that there was fighting. There was infighting, we know. But this was leading up to the war. Go ahead and don't come again. They wait. They're like, I got you now.
Yep, I got you on camera now, mommy.
I got you on camera now. Okay, so they was leading up to the war. So the abolitionists were speaking out at this point. And they were saying that slavery is a very terrible institution. You understand? And so the South began to spring up these shows to say, no, it's not that terrible. The people like it. A lot of Northerners never met slaves at this point. They didn't know what it was like to be in the South. And so the exposure to the... Philippe, I'm gonna ask you to give me 1 second. One second.
We're live, ladies and gentlemen.
We're live. This is live stuff.
We gotta. She's got to do mommy duty here.
Sorry about that.
No worries. No worries. Make sure you turn your camera back on.
Yes, I'm back. You know, they wait. They real. Anyway, I love my children.
You better.
They wait.
Future gods and goddesses.
Yeah, you got to invest in them. They are the future indeed. So the North wasn't really, to what I'm reading, they were a little bit removed from the institution. And so these minstrel shows would travel the country and show this perception of what slavery is. So you had all the stereotypical characters. You had the mammy.
So slavery was basically what you're saying is this particular point was a propaganda tool. Yes. To convince, if you will, yes, Northerners and other folk in the country that slavery is okay, it's yes, good. Yes. The slaves love it and like yes, it, and here's why and how. Wow, yes, that's kind of sick. I mean, that's a war tactic. It's a war tactic because remember, it's getting at 1831, the Liberator is launched. And it was a powerful tool. And this is after this time, you see a lot of the laws that come up that were very hard on reading, because now the abolitionists are taken to the tool of the day, which is newspapers, to write, and pamphlets to educate the people that this institution is wrong and we're looking to bring it down. And so they're getting a lot of the South was pushing back. And so for me, what I'm seeing is that their response is, you know what? We're going to go out and we're going to do these shows, like you said, as a propaganda tool to convince others that it's not as bad. And they called it the peculiar institution. So leave us alone with our peculiar institution. Don't bother us, because the slaves, they like it, you know. Wow. Yeah. Wow. So I forgot, there were some people, some men that you had mentioned that I guess started dressing in drag and started imitating Black women. And this was also part of the propaganda campaign. Yes. In that they kind of, if you will, they were the launching pad of the stereotype or the image or the brand of the angry Black woman. Yes. One very famous one, all of which you can look up and substantiate, and I bid you to please do your research. Francis Leon, or the only Leon, he had over 400 dresses. He was a cross-dressing European man. But we have to understand that these stereotypes are coming out of the mind of, for lack of a better word, the oppressor. The one who was doing the oppressing, they're the ones who are projecting their thought process. So let's just say it's not 100%. But him, George Christie, and Barney Williams, I believe his name is, those are three major ones who went on stage and made it their duty to try to convince the audience that they were female impersonators. So nothing is really new under the sun. They were female impersonators, and they were impersonating the mulatto, as well as what they call the yellow gal, or the fancy lady, as well as the angry Black woman, as well as the mammy, and different characters like that. So that's where it really became cemented in the minds of the American populace that you have a character who is angry, and she became the prototype for the angry Black woman, or he, she, however you want to call it. Sure. Well, so let me understand that because they're trying to sell this idea
Yes.
that black women and black men are happy
Yes.
to be enslaved. That's psychotic right there. But they were basically showing the rebellion against black women who were being, raped and tortured and beaten, and their families ripped apart and beaten as well. And so this was their way of showing how angry they were, but they used it in a social, at that time, the social media platform of the time.
Right. They're telling you, or they're exaggerating her anger, but they weren't telling the people why. Like I was reading even recently, they hardly ever told you what they did. They're only telling you, okay, she's angry. This is, and like you said, they're not telling you she's angry because her children are being stolen, because she's being raped, sexually harassed. They're not telling you she's angry because you killed her husband. They're not telling you why she's angry. So for those who may question, well, why do you treat them like that? I heard you beat your slaves. I heard you do this. Oh, it's because they're obstinate. That was their favorite word. That was a trigger word. You're obstinate. And that word meant that you are sassing me. You're talking back to me. You don't have any right to do that. And because you do that now, I'm going to punish you in whatever way I see fit.
When we talk about epigenetics, there it is. I mean, there it is. I mean, that makes all the sense in the world. It's why black women and black men, because maybe I should write the book, The Angry Black Man. I always joke and tell people I'm not angry. I'm pissed, but I'm not angry, which I don't know. I think pissed is a little bit above anger.
A little above anger.
Yeah, that's a little bit beyond. That's 2 steps past anger.
Yes.
But when you look at the epigenetic fallout of that, that makes sense that, hey, I'm angry because I'm enslaved. I'm angry because I am being sexually abused. I'm angry because you're killing my husband, my sons, my uncles, my family. And when I retort, when I show aggression back on that and push back on that, I'm labeled the angry black woman.
You're not allowed. I was reading recently some of the slave narratives out of one book called Weevils in the Wheat. And they were talking about you're not allowed to show resentment. You're not allowed to show your displeasure. So that perception that they showed, to a certain degree, it was accurate, because they trained the slaves, our enslaved foreparents, our ancestors, that you are not allowed to show your displeasure. I need to always see you smiling. If I sold your child yesterday, today you show up to work and you keep it moving. So,
wow.
Yes.
This is really good. This is really good. I'm loving this, because guess what? When they kill us in the street and gun us down, march and protest, but please don't be angry and show any emotion. No. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting that we're seeing that now? That's the narrative that they constantly say, that we're supposed to take the aggression, take the killings, take the murders, take the police brutality, but don't show any emotion.
Don't show any. And this is why we within inside of ourselves, we began to disconnect. This is why we do things, because where are we going to put all of this? Emotions or energy has to move. It has to be fluid. If not, it begins to eat up its host.
Sure, because energy cannot be destroyed.
Cannot be destroyed.
That's quantum physics right there. So that energy has to go somewhere. And where does it go? It goes to the family. It goes to whoever you're closest to.
Because you were not allowed. Again, you have to remember. I was reading yesterday. They said the woman was recounting a story. She said that the mistress called her waiting maid, and she answered, and she didn't like the way she was answered. They took her and put her in the barn and beat her because she was being obstinate, and she died the next day. You're not allowed to answer me in any way or any tone that I do not approve of.
Wow. It's hard to hear it. We know it happened. We're here, but it's still just horrific. It is absolutely horrific to hear that and to have an epigenetic link
yes.
to that. You talk about in the book that using the acronym ABWS, Angry Black Woman Syndrome, as a soul-destroying weapon.
Yes.
So here's the rub. We are epigenetically currently living out and playing out years and years and generations of abuse where we had to be silent about it.
Yes.
And now in our real life and in our, time that we have on this planet, we are exposed to various different forms of oppression,
Yes.
and are told not to show anger, not to show emotion. And yeah, it does destroy the soul. Mm-hmm. How do you balance the two?
Like I said, for me personally, on my journey of just coming to the center of my soul and healing from my own life's journey, is that we have to first acknowledge it. And like you said, and everybody says who I speak to, it hurts. Yeah. But that's okay. Because acknowledge it, it's gonna hurt, it's gonna bring up these feelings, but guess what? It's hurting because it's inside.
Sure.
So it's just like your stomach is hurting, you ate some bad food, you're poisoning, it hurts, but it hurts more to keep it inside than to bring it up. So the first thing is to acknowledge that, yes, I'm hurting, and that's totally fine. That is a starting point.
When did you find out or realize, or did you always know, when were you an angry Black woman?
When I was younger.
That's a question I have to ask. People will say, Philippe, you didn't ask her that. Come on, Philippe. You know you got to ask her that question. So I have to say, wait a minute, sister. I know you're writing a book about it, and you might be working it out and got it together now. But at some point... you was turned up. You know, yeah. Right.
When I was younger, I grew up with more boys. I was the only girl. So I had to learn how to move my way through. You understand? And I come from Caribbean background where, we show it on our face. We get the school face, we get the look. I wasn't the attack you kind. I was the kind where like, don't talk to me. Don't say anything to me. Please keep it walking. You understand? And people would say, ooh. And I'm like, psh. But that was my protection. That was my shield. That was my way in which I navigated this very sometimes cold and cruel world. So yeah, from I was younger, and I started the journey from I was 17 years old to really trying to understand more about my anger and where it was coming from and what it was all about.
Wow. So here you are, 17. Here you now are on the planet Earth as a young adult.
Mm-hmm.
And in the book, you talk about continuing this concert of propaganda. Mm-hmm. You wrote in the book about Amos and Andy, which was kind of like when television, or not television, but radio first started, and then moving to television, where they kept that narrative of this concept and idea of the rebellious Black woman. Talk to me about that.
We have to realize, because like I said, when you do a little preliminary search, they're always going to take you there. But Amos and Andy is an extension. It's a carryover from the theater, from the minstrel shows. It was written by 2 European men, you understand? And they wrote the script. Again, it's coming out of their mind, how they perceive that or whom them which they're oppressing. We have to keep that in mind. So right out of the minstrel shows, after, Reconstruction, which is like, you're coming up, I'm going to tear you down again. It served 2 purposes. A, it was very lucrative to pretend to be you. I make money to this day pretending to be you or writing scripts for you. It's very lucrative. Secondly, it keeps us a propaganda tool where we can control the minds of the people and how they perceive you. So now, when we come into Amos and Andy, it was first a radio show, but as it progressed and it got in popularity, it was one of the first syndicated across the country. So now this stereotype is projected across the country for everyone to hear and think, okay, the man is shiftless, the woman is overbearing. This is what they did with it. But when it came to television in the 50s, what I found out was there was some pushback from some groups, people of color were like, no, this is not us. What are you doing? And so they couldn't get away with the blackface because it was no longer culturally appropriate to run around in blackface in the 50s. And so they had to get all too willing. So we have to take personal accountability. I'm the one about personal accountability. Sure. We had an all too willing Black cast who decided, now this is my break-in. I'm going to play in these characters that originally, often we forget, was out of the mind or the brainchild of two European men.
That is fascinating, and it you know, it kind of blows my mind, because earlier I said that, you know, propaganda and media is used as a war tactic, right? Mm-hmm. So we're doing that right now, and wherever we're at warring in the world, we have a propaganda tool. The enemy has a propaganda tool that they use against us, which is how they're recruiting people. Mm-hmm. But what's fascinating, what I'm hearing, and also what I'm seeing in my own personal experience, I'm a tad bit older than you. No, I'm very much older than you. At age 50, what I have seen and what I have personally experienced is that we have never stopped being at war.
No,
it's never ended. The propaganda tool has never ended. But I think when you're born into war,
you don't realize that.
You don't realize it. You think it's entertainment, and like that's what a woman is. That's how a woman is supposed to act. That's how a man is supposed to act, and that's how they're supposed to be, and that's the narrative. And when you don't have when you are economically castrated, academically castrated, and you don't have the money to buy books, to research, and to do the work, you just take it at face value and say, well, this is just the way it is. So talk to me about the new, I guess when you were coming up, the show, and you know, I remember the shows like you were talking about in the book, Martin.
Right.
I think later on, Girlfriends. Talk to me about how the media created the angry black woman from Amos and Andy times to the times when you were coming up, and then we'll talk about what's happening right now.
Okay, well, like you said, it continued on, as we said, from the minstrel to Amos and Andy. And if you could try your hardest to look, you're going to see some stereotypical character somewhere. But namely, the angry black woman, you see her in Sanford and Son, which is Aunt Esther. You see her in you see her in the Jeffersons, which is Florence Johnston. You know, Florence will curse Jefferson out and still have a job. So they'll think that the angry black woman expects that she can speak, move, and do whatever she wants, and no one dare not say anything to her. So she still retained a job, you know, go figure. Then you have Martin, which years later is.
Don't forget about Good Times with Good
Times as well.
Yeah.
So you always have the sassy mouth, obstinate. Sometimes it's more overt. We see Pam in Martin, the Martin series, where she's always going back. There's always a going back and forth between a male character. She's emasculating him. He's making it that she's overly masculine. So it's always that's an exchange, and that is the punchline. If you notice and you listen to the laugh track, that's where it's always laughing. That's what's always so funny. And so every show that we see going forward, even in the Tyler Perry movies, even though he's impersonating, he's actually doing what the European did, which is dressed up as a woman and then portrayed this character, which she can classify as an angry black woman as well.
Wow, that is just, you know, it's fascinating because, you know, of course, there's always the pushback of, oh, how dare you talk about these shows? These shows help black people get jobs and, you know, so on and so forth. And I understand that. I'm not trying to take anyone's check away, but it is interesting to see the lineage and the epigenetic lineage of this propaganda track of conditioning, of social conditioning.
Yes.
And that's really what this is. It's a social conditioning because it does stream out to the world. And of course, you know that if Florence Jefferson in real life did that, she wouldn't have a job.
Correct.
That would be analogous to going back to the 1800s where she would be beat to death and killed.
Depending on who the master was.
Correct.
Yeah, depending on who the master was. Right. Indeed. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I'm saying she is, some people will say, because the woman who, and her name escapes me now, who played she played Sapphire, she got a lot of pushback at that space and time. And she had to defend her position of portraying Black people in that manner. So let's not think that people were not aware that, hey, what are you doing? Because so many decades later, these things are not only in America, they have been broadcasted and syndicated to the world. And so when you travel and you go overseas, there is a narrative that's playing in the mind of people who have never met you before. That this is the way we have been told that you should act.
Wow. Yeah. In the book, you talk about various different language, various different terms and language that we use to define the angry Black woman syndrome. One is the term bitch. And that blew my mind because I'm, unfortunately, I know everybody thinks I'm a saint. I'm not. I've used that term quite a bit. I don't anymore, but I've used that term in describing certain women, especially women of color. And when I read your book, I saw the epigenetic link to that word. I kind of got emotional because I was like, oh darn, I'm sorry, I didn't know, because I got, it's so easy to get caught up if you're not aware and if you're not conscious or consciously conscious, because you just don't think that you're at war.
Yes.
All the time. I mean,
all
just 24/7. It never lets up.
Yes.
And so you do and that's the hope, is that you do let your guard down and that you do continue to push the narrative and to be a part of the narrative. Talk to me about the term and the word bitch in the book.
That was, for me, one of the treasures or the treats in this research. I was like, oh my goodness. And when I went back and
found some stuff on YouTube that blew my mind.
Yeah, it's I went in, you know what? Social media is beautiful for researching today because it is unfiltered. And you can go in and really take a litmus test in what is in the minds of the people. So that's what I did in this book. Was you don't have to take my word for it. It's on your computer. It's on my computer. You can go underneath these videos and see the youth and the elders and hear their feedback real time. I mean, right. You don't have to, it's beautiful. So basically, when I began to look at this word and link it with the ABWS, or the angry Black woman, and really come up with Joe Freeman, which was a feminist in the 60s, and really come up with this B manifesto, which is on record, and how they have all of the signs and the symptoms that they attribute to the angry Black woman, but yet still it's present in this B manifesto, and then see it in media, slowly leaking into where a show like Girlfriends in the 2000s can use it without regard to one another. Yeah, that shows you that what did it for me, and I put it in the book as well, was that Mad TV spoof. I don't know if you had an opportunity to click on that and see that, but when I saw that, when the woman went off, she was a European, and it was Bewitched. It was a spoof of Bewitched. And it's called B. I don't like to curse, so it's called B. You could guess, right? She's a B. But she starts off as a European, and when she gets an attitude and she twinkles her nose, she becomes a Black woman, and she starts acting like a ABWS or a B. And I'm like, there it is again. Wow. Wow. Yeah.
And the way it is accepted and the way it is portrayed is through comedy.
Yes. You know the thing about comedy that I learned. If I can lower your defenses.
Yep, there it is. Here it comes.
There it comes. If I can lower your defenses, because laughing is a feel-good emotion. That's why if I can lower your defenses and slip it in while you're in an entertainment mode, then I have it in there. And that's what they've been able to accomplish with these minstrel shows and different. They were comedies. And so, but I'm slipping in this information into your subconscious. Wow. Like you said, if somebody begins to act this way, you're like, oh, you're acting like a translator, exactly. Wow. So they're really playing right into, and one more thing, the women now, not only just the men saying you're acting like a B, the women now say it about themselves with
yes, they've accepted it as almost as a term of endearment, as we use the word, the N word, as a term of endearment as well. Wow, this is extremely powerful, Emunah. I had Dr. Howard C. Stevenson on my show recently, who for the last 25 years has been researching, producing work and literature and training on racial socialization. And part of that racial socialization and dealing with, and one of the things I learned, which really blew my mind, is that there was a study that was done that, and I posted it on my Facebooks and Twitters and what have you, that there are some white folk that when they see a black male in particular, but a black woman as well, especially a black woman that's angry, or when there's temper or there's aggression, it can trigger in one of European descent, it can trigger this same level of fear of someone seeing a spider or a snake. And that knocked my socks off because, you know, I'm 6'3". I've been over 200 and some odd, 200, 300 pounds all my life. I have a, large voice box. I project. And I just did not know that when I am around others of other races, that there might be some that when I raise my voice, even out of passion, that it can create that level of fear in them, and automatically you get labeled as an angry black male or an angry black woman or an angry black person. Talk to me about some of the interactions that you have had where you have seen it, but whether through just your family or through yourself, you were able to navigate through it, obviously, to get to where you are now.
That's an interesting, that was interesting. I think I was listening to that conversation that you were having. And it, for me, it shines light on the fact that not only are we traumatized, but they are too.
Yes.
And I said it. Yes. I said it in a recent video, and people were like, what? I said, one of the things that we don't want to admit is that no matter how dysfunctional the relationship was and is, slavery forced a relationship between Europeans and so-called blacks. This is just the truth. You're in a dysfunctional relationship. And that relationship, our forefathers were very clear about that relationship. You were the oppressor, and we were those who were being oppressed. And so in order for one to affect the next, then we have to understand that that was a real true relationship. And so they're carrying these things with them. That fear of insurrection, that fear of you trying to do me in, that fear of you trying to retaliate is in them. So you flinch and they're like, don't come get me. Because just like the epigenetics of our experience, they're carrying the epigenetics of their experience.
Wow. That's beautiful. Thank you for that.
Yeah, it came to me the other day as I was reading, because everyone who was given the narrative said, my name is such and such, and my master was such and such. And I said, that's a relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's interesting you say that. I also interviewed Dr. Gregory Smithers, who wrote the book Slave Breeding, and did this massive research that, we were, not only did we survive, the slave ships and coming over here, 3 months on ships, and whoever survived was literally survival of the fittest and the strongest of the strong and the best of the best. But what was fascinating is that there was a point in our history where we were actually bred from a population of 1 million to 4.1 million within a 10-year span. Now, what was fascinating about the conversation and the research the conversation I had with him and the research that he did was that after this relationship, as you had talked about, between the slave owner and the slave master and the slave, what was fascinating is that from the get-go there was always this fear of retribution, retaliation.
Yes.
And so here you now have, because we were bred, you have this basically super race that has never been calculated in history. We are the, African Americans and our ancestors of slavery were the strongest people who ever walked this planet because of what they went through. One, surviving the journey to get here, and then two, being bred to be stronger and better, to be able to build America and run the plantation.
Yeah.
What he told me is that at the end, and this is something that's kind of kept out of the history books, or it's in the history books, but you have to look for it,
Right.
is that when slavery ended, he said there was a mass suicide of slave masters, of plantation owners, and that because they said, "Oh my God, what have you done? What the hell is getting ready to go down? That you done freed the people that I have been oppressing, for my generation. We're talking about 339 years of chattel slavery, and I got it. And for the first time, I said, well, put yourself in the shoes of white folk. I would be freaking terrified.
Terrified.
I would be absolutely terrified. It would be analogous to ISIS literally taking over America.
Exactly.
That's the fear. And that fear is real.
It's real. And there's a right, like you said, it continues today. And I was reading, these things are just so addictive. I can't stop reading them. But I'm
you and me both. We're up all night, damn, just read.
I just can't stop.
I'm watching your videos and YouTubes, and I'm like, oh, that's good. That's good. I like that.
Like you said, the fear was so real that they had to use so much force and terrorizing. Literally, they terrorized the slaves in order to get them to be subjugated. I was reading one thing in a book called More Than Chattel, when they said, you know what you got in the Caribbean? They said, you got to stop whipping them. They said, man, if we stop whipping them, they ain't going to work. So these were the tools of which they used to get the power. And when they realized it was gone, this is what I'm seeing turn into these organizations like the KKK. This is what turning into these oppressive governmental systems and laws to continue to subjugate you, because I know that once I back up, retribution is coming in their mind. So the fear is real, it is present, and this is why we see with such force, people without weapons and people who can't possibly do what you think they're gonna do. Inside, you're like, oh, they're gonna do something to me. And to answer your question, the babies that threw me off for a minute. I remember I was working at a, you saw me gone for a minute.
I saw you gone for a minute. That's why I kept going. Yeah,
she's
on mommy duty right now. Pray for the children, people. Pray for the children. Because it ain't nothing like when mama's on the phone or mama's talking and the kids. Oh, I remember those days. Woo, I remember those days. A matter of fact, I'm going to keep you on the show as long as I can, because I remember when my mama hung up the phone. Oh, that wasn't good for me at all. But anyway, let's go.
But, I remember when I was working at a hotel. I'll never forget. This was like an angry black woman. And I just didn't like the fake, hi, how are you? That kind of way. So I used to be in the box, and I would provide customer service, but they wanted me to be overly exuberant. They wanted me to act like, I was walking on. So I remember the woman, she called me in and she wanted to give me a counsel, and she said, you're pretty good, but can we get you to pep up a little bit? Wow. And I mocked her because I used to be very sarcastic. I still am. I'm recovering, So
I'm a recovering sarcastic woman. I love it.
I said, what do you want me to do? Do you want me to sound like this? And she's like, no, not necessarily, because our tone sometimes intimidates them because we are not mirroring them. That intimidates them. This is why we see when some women and men go into corporate settings, the bass in your voice is intimidating. The look on your face is intimidating. And so they try to coach you from that and say, in your professional decorum. And that was one of my experiences that I was like, okay, lady, that's not working for me. I'm going to be nice. I'm going to be cordial, but I'm not going to sound like Becky from the Valley. I'm sorry. So that was my angry black woman experience.
I love this conversation we're having because, the conversation also has to happen between a brother and a sister.
Yes.
I think it's radically important that we have these kinds of conversations, and that you don't just have them with yourself to the audience or just with other women, but you need to have these conversations with other black men without having the angry conversation per se. Yes. What's also interesting is that as we're talking about this, it makes sense. I did some research and I realized that, when we look at law enforcement, and I've had some law enforcement people on the show, and what was interesting is that when you to be a police officer, all you need is a GED. or a high school diploma. And basically a buddy, and sometimes not even that. Sometimes it's just a buddy system where you can just, if you know somebody on the force, you can get in. And I thought about that, and I said, how unevolved are you at a high school level and dealing with human beings, and you have the ability and the law behind you to kill them at your discretion. And what was interesting is that the study showed that when someone in law enforcement has at least a minimum of 2 years of college, that they don't engage in those behaviors that you see happening polarized in the media of gun violence perpetrated by the police. And it's fascinating because the least educated you are, however, these uneducated white men who go into the police force are watching the same shows.
Yes.
And growing up watching the same shows that you and I have grown up watching, and have that same concept in their mind, and absolutely have that epigenetic fear, and also that current fear that they're continuing to have. But now they have a badge and they have the means to kill you as a result of it. And so when they see pushback from a Mike Brown, pushback from an Eric Gardner, pushback from a Trayvon Martin, pushback from a Freddie Gray, and I'm just using those names because those are the names that represent the national media, but so many of us that are nameless, that don't get the media attention, don't get national acclaim. But when they see that anger, they use that language, like the killer of Mike Brown. It looked like a demon. He was I was so afraid. I was afraid for my life. And that's the thing that they hide behind. And it's fascinating to see that out picture and play out.
Right.
Looking at the research that you have done, and looking at the epigenetic fallout and the socialization that still is going on today. So now here you are, here we are, in a new year, and in this particular time, because this is going on YouTube, so this is going to be time dated, time stamped, and it's going to be part of our archives. So right now we're looking at shows that still perpetuate the angry black woman and the shiftless black male. Talk to me about some of the shows of today, such as Empire that you talked about, and the role of Cookie.
Again, it's just the old faithful, it's the one that it engages people. She's the people that people love to hate. She's the person who someone wants to emulate. She is the new B, for lack of a better term. She is what not only black women, but white women now, because we have to remember when the emergence of this B manifesto is coming and the feminist movement, it's like, I want to speak out now. I want to be like her, or the projection of her. And so we see the characters are still here. And the funny thing is, I saw briefly, I didn't watch the awards, but I saw everybody was having this conversation about what Cookie's Taraji P. What's her name?
Taraji P. Henson.
Right, Taraji P. Henson, she said, can you imagine, I've been doing this for a while, and this is what I win a role for?
Yeah.
You win a role for being the best of what I say you are.
Fascinating. That is fascinating.
You can't break rank. If you break rank, you get no credit. You only get credit when you stay within the confines of the picture that my foreparents have painted of you. And
isn't it interesting that the person who created Empire is of European descent? It's fascinating how they write these shows for us, and then we play out those narratives as actors and actresses, and we continue to assist the propaganda. You said something very interesting in the book, and I want to quote it actually, because it was pretty interesting, and that was. You talk about, you said studies project that it takes about 5 good events, to counteract the thought of one bad event, a 5-to-1 ratio. That's huge. That is huge. I was doing the research, and you see it in your everyday life. You can do 5 good things for somebody. They could call you 5 times in a row and say, can you help me? Yeah. Can you help me? That one time you didn't help them. You don't never do anything for me. Like, I just helped you like 5 times in a row.
So our human mind, for some strange reason, we gravitate to negativity easier than we do positivity. And sometimes it wipes out all of the positive things. So as it relates to media, this is why we are bombarded. For every what used to be at this time, you know, the whole perception of the Cosby Show is destroyed. But for every one Cosby Show, there were 5 other shows that portrayed you in a different manner. One portrayed you living in the ghetto. One portrayed you as a single parent. One portrayed you, you know. So all of these dysfunctionalities that people could say, yeah, I identify with that. It's funny, in this book that I'm reading, one elder in 1937, the Library of Congress, they have the files now. They did a big, huge project of interviewing the slaves, ex-slaves at that time, where they were children during the Civil War, and then they were freed. So now they're in their 70s, their 80s, and some are 100. And I said, at least 2 of them said, these moving pictures that these young children are watching, this is in 1937. She says, these moving pictures are going to be a problem because their children are doing everything they see on these moving pictures, meaning what was emerging now, media, moving media, audio, visual. I thought it's like she prophetically said what we're experiencing today.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
That's huge. Yeah, you got to send me that. I got to get you some of that. I got to get me some of that information. You know, one of the things we haven't talked about, Emunah, is music.
Oh,
music. I mean, you know, here's something a lot of people don't know. I remember interviewing Curtis Blow 25 years ago or more, probably more than that. It was a long time. It was in the like right after his career took off. I interviewed Curtis Blow, and I remember, you know, the whole beginning of quote unquote hip hop and what it was for, what it was about. And then I remember also in the 90s when hip hop became a conscious movement. And it was very positive. And when I say positive, I mean that it was kind of like the angry black woman, the angry black man, but you had Public Enemy, you know, you had KRS-One, you know, you had Queen Latifah. Absolutely. But they were distilling our history through rap music, and it was a positive force. And then, you know, that was during the time when Cosby, A Different World, and positive shows were on, and I think they saw a shift, and then all of a sudden something happened where they said, no, this is just not right. This is not good. We need to bring in a different element here. And that was the emergence of gangster rap. Now, you know, not taking anything away from the brothers and sisters who, you know, created it, made their millions, made their money. But it was fascinating how readily acceptable and how well pushed and marketed gangster rap was. And we saw the success of that when they made the story about Straight Outta Compton and the effects of when you start calling women bitches and whores, or hoes, excuse me. You don't put the R in it just for the Eurasian, just so you know. You know, the way they do it, you don't put the R in it because that's you don't want to be proper with it. So it's not a whore, it's a hoe. So, I mean, but just the derogatory aspect of that, of what that means and what they're saying. And so all of a sudden it became, it started to match, you know, the television shows and the movies began to match the music.
Yeah, you had Boys in the Hood that was coming out at that time. What straight? Not Shoot 'Em Up. What's the name of the next one that they did?
Oh gosh, I know exactly
what I'm talking about with Queen. You understand? So the movie, like you said, began to match at that time. But as you were speaking, I can't help but to look at some of the roots that it's the same. Like you said, we're at war, and it's the same tactics now. Earlier on in this country, during the time of enslavement, you were the form of entertainment. Before they went to the minstrel shows, Master would have some people at his house. He would call the best fiddler, the best dancer, the best singer, and they would come and entertain the company. Yeah?
Yep, absolutely.
When it came on to you having your own entertainment, you had spaces where you could have your own entertainment as well. But that would be Saturday nights, like the club. You would be dancing and carrying on. Now, if you wanted to have private meetings and you wanted to have conversations, you weren't allowed to do that. And I'm getting somewhere with this.
Sure.
You weren't allowed to control your own narrative, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So when they went to church, you had to have a European preacher. You always had to have somebody in the midst. So fast forward that to where it is now. Things like the Cosby Show, Different World, certain productive, KRS-One, and you're trying to control your own narrative. You're not allowed to do that. And so now I'm going to introduce some people that's now going to steer your narrative away from where it's going to empower you to where it is that is going to keep you exactly where I want you to be. And that has always been the control of information and the control of the way in which this information is conveyed. That has always been a powerful tool and remains to be. And today, many people speak out against. There was a young guy, he's actually on YouTube. He speaks about how he used to be in the industry and how he saw it. He was a part of it. He saw what was happening and he saw who's behind, so to say, the curtain, encouraging you to go in this direction. And putting this stuff on wax, you know what I'm saying? Letting the children see more guns and more sexually lascivious type of behavior, and then wonder what's wrong with the generation.
Yeah, absolutely. I was talking to Freeway Ricky Ross he's been on my show a couple of times, and you know, he's an advocate now against almost in the entire hip hop rap, the hardcore rap industry, because he says it's a gateway to prison, because that's what it's used for. It's a way to condition young children, young boys, to grow up and go out and sell drugs and think they're going to get a rap deal because they've got street cred. And what was interesting, though, is I posed this question to someone recently, and I said, what if the conditions were such that hip hop and rap never existed? And they couldn't agree. They were like, what do you mean, Philippe? What do you mean if it never existed? I said, if you step back from the symptom and you look at the cause, what would happen if there was if structural, institutionalized, or scientific racism, whatever term you want to call it, did not exist, where that you were able to go to school and get an education, you were able to get a job? And would rap music exist? Because rap music is a function of an oppressive state. What would happen if that never existed? What would happen to the angry black man and the angry black woman if the conditions that produced this material or this art form never existed?
You know, it's an interesting. You see me mouthing without no sound. That's me. That's me sign languaging. But you know, that's an interesting question, because for me, those orators within our community and our people are who they've always been. They're the ones who give the oral transmission of the history. Mm-hmm. You understand? So that wouldn't change, because that had always been. What is changing is what they're speaking about. Mm-hmm. But it has always been, in my estimation, the rapper or the person who can mystify you or draw you in with the way in which they speak. You understand?
Absolutely. I'm old enough to remember the Last Poets. A lot of people don't know about the Last Poets.
Right. So that's who it is. The only thing is they're doing it, you know, in the Caribbean, they do it to a little drum. Here you do it, people beatboxing. Like, you can't stop that. You know, that's the expression of self. Those, you have the singers, and then you have those who rap, aka do poetry. But it's the condition, I think, that's making it so powerful and so because the energy, you know, the energy of anger or hurt or pain, it has a negative pull to it, but it also pulls in people who may be experiencing similar, you know what I'm saying, similar things within their life. So I think that's what really gave the rap music the power. But if it wasn't that, we're going to find something to sing about. You know, you can't stop us from singing. That's just what we do.
Well, remember, we used to sing about love. We would always, and then all of a sudden that kind of changed and shifted to, you know, a completely different genre. And I'm not attacking hip hop, because Lord knows I love it. But I'm just looking at it. I think what you have to be able to do is that at some point, if you are going to become conscious, is you have to look at it.
Yes, true.
For what it really is. Even though you'll dance to the beat and you'll groove to it, you might turn it up in the car, turn it up at home, but know what it is, because knowing what it is releases the power of the what I call the trance.
Yes.
right?
You spoke a little bit about the beat. These are all things that we don't have to, but it will be good to realize, like you said, to become aware. That drum beat affects the heart. It affects,
Yes.
the lower consciousness. And this is why the children get in that, you start playing something and they start bouncing like this, like they're ready for war. Some of that is war. That epigenetically, that's within your system. When you used to be a warrior, when you used to be this, so they're speaking to it, but not giving you the outlet of which to express it. And so because of that, now you're expressing it in the streets and killing your own, as opposed to if you had someone who was against you at other times, you would express it as a warrior. You understand? So,
wow. I'm trying to stay in my seat. But that kind of what you just did, I was almost like, how when you used to go to church, you used to just stand up because the preacher would say something, and you couldn't just stay in the seats. You just had to stand up and just put your hand up. And that's where I was with what you did. I was like, Lord, don't have me get up out of my chair now. Not my chair. This is my show. Woo! That was good stuff. That's good talk, Emunah. So, and I'm just looking at the time. I'm like, well, even though we can go on forever, but we ain't gonna go on forever. But I need to get some stuff out. Solonomics. Which is spelled with S-O-U-L, soul. Right. Solonomics is what you do. Talk to me about Solonomics and what it is.
It's basically that. It's the study of all things pertaining to the soul. You know what I'm saying? And I was looking at the prefixes and the suffixes of different words, and they have economics, and you have all of these things, the study of certain things. And like I said, I started on this journey very early. I have parents who taught me early on, to be a critical thinker. And when I looked at all that we're studying, and for me, I wanted to know, how does it relate to my soul, my being, my essence? And so I look at the world and everything in it as it relates to, how is this going to translate? Because there's a lot of things here in this three-dimensional existence that they tell us we can't do. But my question is, how does it translate? What kind of imprint will it leave upon my soul, and what kind of imprint am I leaving on the souls of others? So I actually penned that book before Angry Black Woman, but I didn't think that people were or really understand what I was speaking to. So I said, you know what, let me deal with something that's relatable today, which would be the soul cry. The angry black woman, the angry black man. This is a soul cry. This is something that has been injured you in such a place that generationally you're still dealing with it. So I think it was a good way in which to introduce Solonomics, just to get us to we can look at all what's going on around us, but always bring it back to a space of, how is this affecting the unseen me? And how could you understand? So that's basically in a nutshell what Solonomics is about.
Okay, how can people get some? I want to get some Solonomics. I need to have it. I need some. If I got to go and hang out with your children, I'll do whatever it takes. I need to get some Solonomics. How do I get it?
It's a consciousness. The book is not out yet. Like I said, that's the next one that's going to be coming, and then the part 2 it is. But really, it's just a way of thinking. It's a way of processing, to step back from what we're experiencing, and it's a filter really of how I think and process things and what I'm seeing around me. The unseen laws, universal principles, that kind of thing.
I'm putting my marketing hat on it, and you missed it. I'm asking, how can people get some Solonomics? I need web addresses. I need all kinds of information. How can people get in contact and find you and download you to your YouTube videos? Because people need to watch you as much as they watch me, if not more. So they need.
I got you, Philippe. I was kind of slow on that one.
All right.
Emunah Yisrael. That's www.emunah and YSRAEL, all one word. Emunah Yisrael. I'm the only Emunah Yisrael on everything: Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. You could you go to .com and you'll see the website come up. I do public speaking. I speak about this in particular, as well as other issues that plague us in the community, just from a grassroots level, just from somebody who, by my bootstraps, really just wandered through the wilderness for a very long time, trying to get an understanding of why I keep attracting this kind of energy into my life. And it took a long time, like 18 years, to get to this point. So I give praise to the Most High that I'm even able to have the conversation and help others begin to walk through their wilderness and get to a point where they can begin to grow and heal from their it's not rocket science, but it does take work. I would say that it takes us a willingness and a bravery to face your own demons. Like, we can analyze outside all day long. See, this is what's wrong with that, and this is. But when we talk about ourselves, we get like, oh no, don't touch that part. Oh no, don't do that. We have to be willing to go into our own deepest, darkest spaces and places and begin to clean out those sores and that hurt, that soul wound. So
wow. Emunah Yezreel, you are just freaking awesome. I just love you. I am blessed to find you. To know you. Oh my gosh, you don't know. You don't know how many shows we're gonna be doing, you and I. You think this is the only show we're gonna be doing? No, sister, you might be on next week. I'm just saying, because the conversation is so relevant.
Yeah, it's
so many areas, especially the research that I'm doing. So, ladies and gentlemen, stop what you're doing and go and download. They can get this on Amazon, and they can get it from your website. Is that right?
Correct.
Angry Black Woman Syndrome Revisited. Now, this is volume 1, Her Mind. I can't wait to read volume 2. When is volume 2 coming out?
I'm doing that. Like I said, I'm wading in the water on the research of volume 2, because volume 1 was really just coming from the media. But now I'm looking at the system of slavery itself and how it affects or have affected and continues to affect, because it's the same thing, just by another name, her soul, right? And not only just the angry Black woman, because we have to understand that, and I don't want to, like Philippe said, we could go long, but it spawned different mentalities. You had the angry Black woman, let me just say this, she was the one who rebelled. She was the one who fought back with the only way that she could, which was her mouth, which was her disposition to show master, look, I don't want to do that. Sexual harassment was real. If she worked in the house, she was sexually harassed on a constant.
Absolutely.
And the only way in which she knew how to push back off of that was by sassing or being obstinate. You understand what I'm saying? So it was a defense, and still is a defense mechanism to protect you from real and present danger. So as a man to a woman and a woman to a man, we have to understand that we are carrying baggage that we used at one time to protect ourselves from people who wanted to hurt us. So,
Ooh, I always say after having a heavy show like this, I need a good cigar and a good scotch. But actually, after this show, a brother need a nap.
Take a nap.
I need to just lay it down for a minute. I'm just like, okay, I'll be back in a couple of hours. I need to lay down.
It's heavy.
It's heavy.
It's heavy.
Oh.
Because what I would say is it causes so much friction. Yeah. These are the reasons why our brothers say, I would rather deal with a European. I would rather deal with a Spanish woman. And I say to them, that is a slap in the face. Because here's another interesting tidbit. On the plantation, there was a large amount of male slaves who ran away than female. What this translates into is that she had to stay and endure.
And fend for herself.
And fend for herself with, this is the baby's hand, with the children. And so she had to, and so for you to say that the same people who were oppressing you and her and caused you to run off, you're now going to turn to because she doesn't have the same issues as you. Think about it. Think about it.
Wow.
Why does she have these issues? So of course, Susie, of course, Betty, they're not going to have these issues. They didn't go through that. They don't have that to deal with. They don't have that extra baggage. So I had to say to somebody that I know very dearly, I had to say to them, think about the other side of this. Of course, and she's still angry today because she is at the bottom. No matter how you see her climbing up in the corporate, whatever, she is still emotionally and mentally oftentimes at the bottom of this whole conversation because everybody likes to dump on her head, and that's another topic for another day. But
it is. All right. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna sign off. I want you to stick around in the green room, Emunah, and thank you so much for taking the time out and being with me. I know the videos that you produce, and I know the work that you're doing and the research that you're doing. Yeah, and you got 4 kids and a husband. Lord help you. I'm praying for you just on that level.
I'm doing my work humanitarianly and sharing. People say, Emunah, how you do it? How can I not do it? Is what I say, because my children, I want to sow them good seeds that when they grow up, they can get that, their parents did their part. So
wow, how beautifully blessed your children are to have you and your husband as mommy and daddy. That is amazing. Those are our gods and goddesses. I can't wait. All right, stick around. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning in to Philippe Matthews' show After Hours, because this was an after hours kind of conversation. As you know, you just kind of share this at night with your friends. You know, you look at it, you know, on your phone, just like, well, you don't want to be going to work and have nobody hear about this conversation. You know what I'm saying? You want to share this with yourself. That's why I do after hours on certain topics, because you don't want to get you all in trouble, get you fired, and nothing like that. You know, get you all caught up. All right, so thanks for tuning in wherever you are around the world. We'll see you next time on the Philippe Matthews Show After Hours. Stick around, Emunah.